Hi, Darva. Happy Friday. How are you doing today?
Good. And yourself?
I am doing good. Thank you for asking. And thank you for
Great.
participating in this interview that the Morehouse College students are going to see. Just to give them an idea of potential career trajectories, both here at GitLab and externally in the larger tech world. We're interviewing a number of current GitLab employees just to talk a little bit about their journey, how they got here, etc. So I'm going to open it up with the first question of just tell me your name and where you're from.
My name is Darva Satcher, and I'm from Oakland, California.
Okay, so how did you first hear about software engineering, Darva Satcher from Oakland, California?
Yes, from Oakland. I heard about software engineering well, it wasn't called software engineering. It was programming is what we used to call it back in the day. When I was in about seventh grade, and my stepfather brought home a computer, and I was really interested in how it worked. And I started to learn more about how it worked, and I decided I wanted to go into computer engineering because I wanted to build computers. I later got a job with IBM, and I was doing computer engineering there. But I realized that building computers required software development skills. So I actually had to learn software development there in my very first job.
Oh, all right, so take me back a little bit here because there's a little bit to unpack here. So you said you got the computer when you were like junior high school and you thought
Yeah.
you wanted to go into the hardware side of things initially
Yes.
first. And
Yeah.
what were you thinking? It was the actual build themselves. You wanted to do like the mechanical put all
Well,
pieces together?
so I wanted to build microprocessors,
Okay.
which is what I got to do. And I loved it. And it is like literally my first love. But the industry was starting to ship those types of jobs overseas. And there weren't a lot of jobs where you could become a computer engineer. Most of the jobs are going towards software. There are just way more job opportunities in that environment. So I changed due to a lack of opportunities. And I wanted to be able to live anywhere. And the hardware jobs were always in these remote places. I was in Rochester, Minnesota, so very remote.
Okay. So then so let me take another step back. So you go away to college, your major in college is what?
Okay, so let's talk about I went away to college. So I went to Spelman College. I grew up in the Bay Area. We didn't know a lot about HBCUs back in the day. I saw this movie, Boys in the Hood, best movie ever. That's when I heard Spelman. That's literally how I heard about Spelman. And I did some research on it. And I was like, I want to be there. That's where I need to be. So I went to Spelman, and I knew I wanted to go into computer engineering. And I majored in general engineering at Spelman and computer engineering at Georgia Tech as part of the dual degree program.
Okay.
While at Spelman, well, everyone who's listening to this video knows that the experience is there. I had a great experience at Spelman. When I went to Georgia Tech, it was very different. It was like work. I still would say that it was probably some of the hardest work I've done up to date. But I learned, like, I got a really good idea of what I wanted to do. I still wanted to stick to computer engineering. And they had lots of companies coming on campus. I think .NET, the internet, it was all taken off around then. And the companies would come to campus and they would just interview us by like the dozens. And it was just literally, where do I want to go? And when it was all said and done, I had maybe 4 options. And I just went with who was going to pay me the most. And that's how I ended up at IBM.
Okay. As an ex-IBMer, I totally get it.
I love IBM.
Right? Okay, so then you're doing computer engineering, and then you're in Rochester, Minnesota. And what then makes you want to transition to software? Was it at that moment when you were in Rochester, Minnesota, or was there something else that propelled you to say, I need to go into software?
It was my husband. So I met my husband. He went to Morehouse while I was at Spelman. We met in literally the first week on campus. And he went to law school and I went to Minnesota. And after I've been there for a few years, he proposed. And he got a job on the Hill in DC. And so I moved to DC so that we could start our life and our family in DC. And when I got ready to move to DC, I was supposed to transfer from IBM, and they had a hiring freeze when I got to IBM in Maryland, in Bethesda, Maryland. So I was basically out of a job. And that's when I started looking for software development opportunities. But even when I was transferring from IBM Rochester to IBM Maryland, I couldn't get a hardware engineering job. I had to transition to software at that moment.
So it was out of just pure necessity because that's the way the industry was going. Gotcha.
Yeah.
So then what was your first foray then into software development?
So software development, ironically, it was a startup company. I was employee number 24, and I worked for a company called Acumen Solutions that was just bought out by Salesforce about a month ago. But we basically were contractors or consultants, and I worked at companies like Nextel, Sprint, different telecommunications companies. And I worked in every phase of the software development lifecycle. So the first job you usually get, well, back in the day, was testing. So I was a tester and I wrote scripts using Load Runner, Wind Runner. I don't know if anybody knows about that, but I started off testing. And then I moved into requirements gathering. Then I moved into design. Then I moved into development. And so I basically played every role there was in the software development lifecycle over the course of 5 years at a startup. I worked like 70-hour work weeks. So it was a lot. And the only reason I left that job is because we decided to start a family, and I could not have a family and work those hours at the same time.
Okay, gotcha. So then tell me, how did you get from there, going 70 hours a week and saying, all right, I need to start a family? How did you get from that moment then to GitLab?
So there were 2 jobs in between. The next job was for a government contractor, and I worked there for about 3 to 4 years maybe. And then I decided to have another child. By then I got the hang of it. Every time you go to a new job, you work less hours and you get more money. That's how it was working, right? So it worked the first time. I had less hours and I got more money. So I was like, I'm going to do this one more time because now I have 2 children. So as you can see, my trajectory was always determined and defined by my family circumstances, right? That's how it was. So then I went to the government and I was there for 10 years. At that point, my husband relocated to Atlanta. And so when we did that, I told my job, I was like, look, I'm relocating. And they said, you can keep your job. So I was like, oh, I can. And they said, you can work remotely. And so I did that for a time. And then I got to a point where they were saying, you can't go any higher. This is it. You're done. So then I started looking for a job. And it was the first time that I was looking for a job because I wanted to look for a job, right? So it was like, sky's the limit. And someone from GitLab reached out to me, and it was a good offer. I was very picky by this time, and I had other companies interested, but they just didn't give me everything that I needed. And GitLab literally checked every box.
Nice. Okay. So how long have you been here at GitLab now?
Since June 2019.
2019. Okay. And so can you tell us a little bit about your current role and how that role relates to what our consumers actually see or play with?
All right. So I'm a senior engineering manager, so I am no longer coding. I manage a team of 5 engineering managers, and they all have different features in the GitLab product. So my teams include code reviews, source code, and that's where you're creating merge requests and you're reviewing code. I also have the ecosystem team, part of the ecosystem team, and that's working with integrations, so like a Jira integration. I have the editor team, and they're responsible for the web IDE or the GitLab pages. And I think that's it. Yes, that's it.
Okay, so as a manager, you oversee multiple functions.
Yes.
Okay. Which is your favorite function to oversee?
That's interesting. Okay. My favorite feature in the product is actually probably things that Plan works on, which are epics and project planning, but that's not my group. But for my teams, I would never pick a favorite. That wouldn't be right. Okay. I think they're all fantastic features.
So then why are epics your favorite feature here at GitLab?
Mainly because I like requirements. I like converting customer requirements into actual work. And you go from the requirements to creating epics, which are like big batches of work that you associate with issues, and you iterate on that issues to complete that epic, which is what touches the customer. So I love, working as closely to the customer as possible. And that's the main reason why I kind of like epics the most, but that's not my team.
It's good to know, right? Okay, so you have this you have this extensive work history where you've done a lot of things. You've been on both the hardware side and you've been on the software side. Looking back at when you had your choice of roles, right, or when you decided I'm going to look, for this next role, and you ended up at GitLab, what do you think made you attractive to GitLab? Why do you think that recruiter reached out to you?
I would definitely have to say the fact that I've worked remote for a long time and I know how to manage in a remote environment. We have a set of values at GitLab that I had to figure out on my own because I was the only one who was remote in my previous organization. And I not only agree with them, I did them myself. So it was a very good fit. Also, I'm kind of a unicorn in a way. I'm techie, but I really like working with people. I have a variety of interests. So you can literally put me on a lot of different things. I'm very flexible. And so I think that was probably what attracted them to me.
Okay, and since you've been here since June of 2019, what skills have you picked up since you've been here?
Wow, I think what I've learned the most is probably more change management. There's been, with a company that grows this fast, there's a lot of change. And in my previous companies, the change wasn't as quick and as much. So I've learned how to navigate change management as a skill and teach others and mentor others, as well as I believe I've improved my time management. I have great mentors myself, and they've really taught me a lot of tricks on how to better manage my time and how to produce results more quickly and to iterate much better. So there's been several things that I've learned in just the last year.
Now, you brought up something about mentorship, which to me is key, right? Mm-hmm. How do you go about finding mentors?
So I've always kind of just self-selected. If I need information, I just go to the person who has it and I ask a lot of questions, but I was never really formally in a program. But shortly after I started with GitLab, they had this formal mentoring program where they sign you up with a mentor outside of the company. And they did that for me. And I have a mentor now. He's fantastic. He works at DocuSign. He's like a VP in San Francisco. And it's been one of the best opportunities that I've had at GitLab because it's someone in that next position above me. Mm-hmm. And he offers great advice. So I was very lucky that GitLab had that opportunity and presented it to me.
Nice. Okay. So think back to your 20-year-old self. What is some info or words of wisdom that you would give the 20-year-old Darva?
Don't work too much. Mm-hmm. I had 3 jobs coming out of college because I was bored. And what ended up happening, I worked at IBM 40 hours a week doing my engineering job. Then I got time and a half to work in the factory section, cleaning disk. And then in the evenings I did that on the weekend. In the evenings from 5 to 9, I worked at the Mayo Clinic filing papers. So it wasn't about money. It was I was just had to be busy doing things. But what happened was I kind of kept that up. And I felt like I had a really bad work-life balance for years. And now I'm still trying to unlearn that, and I have children that need me and that want time with their mother. And I'm like, oh, but I'm working on this, And some of those bad habits kind of stick with you, but you don't have to kill yourself. So I would really just enjoy life a little bit more and not sacrifice the balance in your life.
Nice. Good words of wisdom. So how do you see this industry transforming over the next couple of years? And what would your advice be to the students who are watching this video right now?
I would say, so software development is interesting because it always changes. It's so different from year to year. When there's something new to learn it, or you will fall behind. Your degree is as good as the year you got it in, right? So this is a forever learning occupation. This is not like becoming a doctor or a dentist or a lawyer. This is literally, you've got to study and learn every year. If you do not, someone will come in and write a program to take your job. It happens all the time because technology, the purpose of technology is to make things easier and more automated. If it's automated, then where does that leave you? That leaves you learning the next thing. So you need to always be ahead of the trends and always be willing to do the work that no one else wants to do and always be willing to learn the next new thing.
Awesome. Anything else you'd like to leave them with?
Definitely take advantage of this course. There are things that are being taught in this course that you can definitely apply once you get your job in the professional world, even if it's not a GitLab. But also remember, you are basically interacting with potential future team members, right? You could use this as a networking opportunity, or people who might get to know you and write a reference. But take advantage of this opportunity, please.
Good stuff. Well, Darva, thank you so much for your time. This has been really insightful.
All right, thank you, Sharif. Thank you for all these interviews. Everyone, round of applause for Sharif. Thank you so much for volunteering to speak with all of the different team members.
Of course. Thank you.